So I just saw John Wick, the fourth one, and it was good. I have now seen all of the John Wick films, and this is easily my favorite. Wasn't really huge on the first one. There were parts of it that I really appreciated and enjoyed, but it really just wasn't for me. There's a longer review on my channel about this film, so go check that out if you want to hear my extended thoughts. John Wick Chapter 2 was simultaneously better and worse. The action was a lot goofier and more over the top, and therefore a bit more interesting, but holy fuck, do they ever make you wait for it? The overwhelming majority of the movie is just really bad dialogue. There's a bunch of rules about the assassins and stuff that, you know, it's really just not that interesting to me. I kind of wanted to see the action. The universe functions in a way that you'd imagine a 14-year-old wrote. Every scene has this really awful quote-unquote cool music playing. It's just music that's constantly insisting how cool everything that's happening is, and sure, to some people maybe that works, but to me it just rings hollow and feels really insincere. Also, Keanu Reeves is not a great actor at all. I'm sure he's a very nice man, but that doesn't really affect my ability to believe him as a character in a fictional universe. Kind of just see Keanu Reeves the whole time.
Where is he?
What are you doing, Jonathan?
He burned my house down.
This movie made me wait a long time to finally get action, and when the action happened, it was like, oh, okay, this is comprehensible, but also kind of childish and dumb. Parts of it felt really clunky. There were also some very weird editing choices. Anyway, John Wick Chapter 2, kind of unsatisfying, 5 out of 10. John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, not my thing also. The movie starts out pretty entertaining. The way they explain the whole excommunicado stuff is pretty silly, stupid, and funny. The entire library fight scene was very stupid and memorably cheesy. I was definitely more engaged with this film just because of how much sillier it was, but the film still continues to feel weirdly serious at parts. There's weird artistic decisions in these movies that just don't quite gel with me. In this film, they had an action scene where they removed the music completely, and I've praised that choice in a lot of other films because it leaves you with this sense of like, oh, now it's serious, and you just get to appreciate the sound design or the sound effects, the Foley, and, you know, if it's an action fighting sequence, maybe like the grunts of the actors or whatever. The implication when you remove the music, especially in a movie that's playing music constantly, the implication when you remove it is, oh, this is serious now, shit's getting real, you're grounded. And when it happens in this film, and I believe it happened in John Wick 2 as well, I don't remember, but it happens in this film, what they're showing is just so goofy and silly that I'm confused by the choice to remove the music because it doesn't fit with what's happening. The implication that this is grounded and real and like, oh, this is serious now, but what they're showing is just so difficult to take seriously. It feels clashing, and it makes me feel as if the film isn't as self-aware as some people think it is. It's definitely a film that's trying to be cool, particularly in a scene where they drop the music. It's supposed to be more competent than the other scenes. Ideally, it's supposed to at least feel real. I don't know. Some of you should understand what I'm trying to say here. Either way, it's an editing decision that just did not work for me. It's such a silly, stupid movie with really dumb rules. It really just feels like a movie that has violence for adults, but the plot of a movie for 14-year-olds. It's like a movie made for 14-year-olds to sneak into the theater to see. Like, I'm watching scenes in this film being like, damn, this would be the fucking coolest thing ever if I was 14. And again, with this third film, even though I was connecting to parts of it more, and there are parts that are more memorable to me just because of how silly and goofy they were, unfortunately, there's just so much really awful dialogue, and it's delivered by Keanu Reeves and other characters, and they're just talking about like, if you kill them, they'll kill you. I'll kill him dead. I'll kill him first. And this unironic, really cool cool, implying you're cool music playing throughout this entire thing. And it's grating and it's boring and it's really difficult to get into. And so the entire time, most of this film, most of the last film, I'm kind of just like, damn, like, will you at least get to the action? And then it gets to the action and it's silly and goofy, but it's not like The Raid Redemption. It's not like Kill Bill. It's not like The Matrix. It's not like almost any Jackie Chan movie. These are all just competently filmed action scenes, but they're not exceptional. And when I say that, I mean they shouldn't be considered exceptional, but they are, because people are just so starved for a half-decent action movie that when something comes out and it's like, oh, this is an action movie, and it's competently orchestrated, and the action is comprehensible, and it's not terribly shot, suddenly it's an exception. Like, technically, it is an exception because of how bad the landscape of action films currently is. Unfortunately, I don't know where the grammar was going in that sentence, but you understand me, okay? Don't pretend like you don't understand me. The way people described these films, I was expecting films that just had action in them and no bullshit. That's what I really want out of a movie. But unfortunately, there's a lot of bullshit, and when the action comes, it's competent, it's well done, there's some good stunts, there's some good coordination, some of it feels sloppy, there's a good amount of hits where I go, that didn't connect, you didn't cheat that well, it kind of seems silly. I don't believe the action that you're implying is taking place because of how it was orchestrated. I don't know if it was the fault of the stunt coordinator or if it was the fault of the cinematographer, like if it's just how it was shot. But either way, there's some parts of it in every one of these movies where I'm like, okay, well, that didn't come together as well as, you know, people are pretending it did. It's competent, it's very competent, and especially in the current landscape of action films where I guess nothing but John Wick is even doing a competent job with action scenes. You know, this is unfortunately exceptional. Anyway, John Wick Chapter 3, 5 out of 10. John Wick Chapter 4. One thing that is notably better about this film is the pacing. I didn't find myself bored watching this film, which is insane because I was very bored watching the first 3 films. Not throughout the entirety of the first 3 films, but for enough of it that I found myself losing my mind and being upset during long sequences of the first 3 films. Like, holy crap. Just get to the action. It wouldn't be the worst if the dialogue wasn't so shit. It wouldn't be the worst if there wasn't this constant, like, oh, we're so cool right now, music playing the entire time that's just completely insincere and doesn't really... It's not showing anything. Like, the dialogue isn't that cool and what it's showing isn't that cool, but the music is just insisting it, and I'm kind of just left sitting there. Anyway, this film... definite improvement. Not as boring. There's a much better ratio of action to dialogue, and when the dialogue is happening, it is very stupid, and there is this weird pretending to be cool music playing, but it doesn't drag on forever. And with the implication of like, oh, all the events, you know, culminating leading up to this, and the plot is just so silly and goofy, and all these extra rules that they throw in, like, it doesn't really feel like they're wasting our time too hard with the dialogue scenes in this film. It really doesn't feel like they're just trying to pad the movie so that there's not as much action in the film and they're just eating up the runtime. It really felt like they were trying to spend time, I don't know, developing the character, kind of, but not really. Just, I guess, more just explaining more rules and having more dialogue of Keanu Reeves going like, I gotta kill him. No, but if you gotta kill him, they'll kill you. I'll kill him dead. I'll kill him first. I'm the killer. Like, just a lot of that shit. And it just somehow delivering it worse than how I just said it. Just imagine the line delivery is worse than that, and you've got Keanu Reeves in this franchise. This movie is almost 3 hours long. It's the longest John Wick film, but it flows so much better. And even though there are moments where I'm like, I really didn't feel as though I was being blueballed. I didn't really feel as though I was trying to escape sort of get me out of here style, being like, please show me some action, I'm so bored. That didn't happen in this movie. I was just mildly amused at points. And then they showed some action, and the action was goofier. There's a blind character whose weapon of choice is gun, and that was very silly. And it was very inconsistent with how he's able to detect someone else. Like in certain scenarios, he would need the help of a device, and in other scenarios, he wouldn't. It would be like, oh, I know exactly where you are right now because I'm such a good assassin. But at other points, it would be like, oh, I have no idea where you are. And it just seemed kind of not random, just convenient for the script. So obviously, as soon as he's fighting Keanu Reeves, then he's not an expert marksman just who's able to tell exactly where someone is. It's like, oh, I guess Keanu is faster, even though he really isn't. Because as this franchise goes on, and especially as this film in particular goes on, when you're in the second half of this movie, you kind of have to admit that everyone trying to kill him just fucking sucks, right? It's not he's the best. It's everyone who's trying to kill him, who are all supposedly assassins. They just suck. They had so many opportunities. There were so many chances where they easily could have just like popped him, right? Easily. And he just would have been done. But, you know, it's a movie, it's an action movie, and it's a John Wick action movie. So you kind of just, he survives conveniently for some reason. They were bad at that moment. When they had an opportunity to kill him, they were bad. They're all really bad shots at certain points in the film where they can be, and then at other points where they can be good shots, then they're good shots. You know, it's just, yeah. It's one of those. Still much more entertaining than the previous John Wick films. And as I was watching this, fully prepared to just kind of be left with more or less the same feeling by the end of it of like, oh, you know what, the action was competent, but, you know, at least there was more of it. In the final act of this film, there's an action sequence that is super impressively well thought out and well realized and well coordinated, and it looks incredible, and it seems like it's done all in one take. I'm not sure if it actually was, but it was like a top-down shot, like Hotline Miami, and it's moving through all these different rooms from over top, and it's incredible. That scene is worth the entire movie. That scene is worth the entire price of admission right there. That was a really, really cool scene, and I love how it was filmed, and I love how it was executed. I love how it turned out. It was memorable and exciting, and I was glued to the screen. And this is something that I have not experienced in any John Wick film up until this point. So this blew my fucking mind, because this was the first moment in any John Wick film, this massively successful franchise that everybody's going crazy over because of the action. I finally see an action scene where I'm like actually impressed by the action that's taking place. The action involving, you know, both the actors and stunt people, and also the camera work and the cinematography and just the execution and the creativity behind the scene and just every element of filmmaking coming together. I consider that to be part of the action, right? I consider that to be part of the film. And then even after that point, that being the best scene in the film, in my opinion, even after that point, there's another action sequence that is still very entertaining. It's probably the second best action sequence in the John Wick franchise. And it's not as impressively shot. It's not as insanely well realized or anything. There was a really goofy moment, not gonna be too specific, but let's just say he fell down for quite a long time, and I was laughing. That was pretty funny. That was really over the top. But yeah, that whole sequence, even though it felt more similar to the other John Wick films, I guess, in concept and execution than the one scene that I'm really raving over, it still was really fun to watch. And I guess maybe the fact that it was so gratuitous and that there were so many bodies and just conceptually what was happening was just kind of silly and fun. Like it satisfied this goofy sort of action itch for me. And that's what people were saying that the other John Wick films were. But I never got anything close to that in John Wick 1 through 3. I was kind of just, I appreciated some things, but most of it was just really boring and the action wasn't that impressive. But yeah, finally, in the last third of John Wick Chapter 4, some really fun stuff, some really impressive stuff. I would watch this movie again. I would watch the whole movie again, even though there's a lot of really stupid really stupid shit in the movie, I guess overall. It's so weird. Overall, a very competently executed action film that is incredibly stupid, and I kind of want it to continue, even though they said that this is the last one. I kind of want them to just keep going like the Saw movies, you know, also Lionsgate, because I feel like the more stupid they get, the better it is for me. That's something that's true with John Wick, and that's something that's true with the Saw films. The more that they expect me to believe something that is just so obviously not happening, plot-wise, the more that I'm entertained by it. Because it's not like it would have a great plot otherwise, you know? You might as well just lean into it. Lean into the absurdity. Yeah, what a fascinating franchise and a fascinating film. Again, I feel like the overwhelming success of this franchise, especially considering what the first 3 movies are, is just proof that we're in a really bad generation of movies when it comes to action films. Like, people are really starved for good action movies. So please, if you love really well-coordinated action, I will strongly recommend The Raid Redemption. Also, The Raid 2. The Matrix has some great action in it. Kill Bill has great action in it, both 1 and 2. And yeah, please check out some old Jackie Chan movies, like the Police Story. I've seen Police Story 1 and 2. Those films have some great action, you know? And sure, not every scene is action. but even though it's blue balling you in some scenes, it's, you know, when it gets to the action, you're like, okay, wow. You know, I like having a gut visceral response to something. When I'm watching the Raid films, I'm like into it. I'm like, oh, you know, like noises will come out of me because I'm invested in the action, and what's happening is just so intense and, you know, not just graphic, which it is more graphic than John Wick, but also just the level of athleticism from the stunt performers in those movies is just like absolutely incredible. Anyway, I really enjoyed this film in particular. The other 3, meh, not my thing. If they are your thing, obviously me not enjoying them doesn't prevent you from enjoying them. I mean, hopefully. It would be really weird if it did. And I am not a better person for not enjoying them. You're not a worse person. Everybody's okay. You know, different strokes for different folks. We should all be able to process this emotionally in healthy and productive ways, in my opinion. But yeah, seriously, check out The Raid 1 and 2, because if you like great action, everybody should see it. I don't know why more people haven't seen it. And I'm giving John Wick Chapter 4 a 6 out of 10. I agree, it is the best John Wick. And holy shit, it's in the top 250, but I shouldn't be surprised on IMDb. All right, thank you.